In this video, I chat with 3 of my coding YouTuber friends, Tech with Tim, Kevin Naughton Jr., and Nick White, about software development's seemingly looming threat. We'll be discussing Devin AI, the impacts that AI has on software development as a whole, if you should be worried, and ways you can sort of future-proof your career. Now, I'm really excited to share this video with you because we had a ton of fun filming it. So Tim, can you tell us about Devin AI?
Yeah, so Devin AI has been kind of going viral over the past few days, and from what I hear and from what's out there, it's the first AI software engineer. Now, according to Devin itself, or the company that's behind it, it can solve about 14% of GitHub issues. It might not seem like a crazy amount, but compared to something like ChatGPT that can currently solve 5, it's pretty impressive. Now, from what I understand, the way it can do that is because it has access to its own IDE, its own browser, its own console, and the demo video they showed, at least, the way it solves problems is very similar to how any of us would do it. It makes a plan, it starts solving it, it runs into an issue, it debugs the issue, it goes on Google like any of us would do, like a normal software engineer, and starts solving problems. So it's pretty incredible so far to see it working, but I don't really know what it's going to mean for the future.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds pretty trash.
Yeah, you don't like it?
14% is pretty bad.
I mean, that's a lot, though.
I mean, for an AI, I think ChatGPT was around 5% of issues.
I know, but these all just came out in the past, year.
How many GitHub issues can you solve, percentage-wise?
Probably 99.
Yeah.
pretty good.
That sounds about right.
But, no, I mean, that's pretty fast, development from ChatGPT where it was a year ago.
Yeah, it's only been out a year. Or a year and change.
And now we've got this thing. Right. I mean, that's only a year, so that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, 14% is low, but it's just rapidly increasing.
Yeah.
Year over year. So it is pretty, it is kind of concerning, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the 14% you got to put in the perspective of all software engineers. From what I understand, in that same data set, it's all software engineers, normal ones that are working, can solve 70 to 75% of those GitHub issues. But it's how much better is it going to get? But when I look at a stat like that, I wonder what issues is it actually solving, right? Is it refactoring something? Is it doing a basic fix? It's difficult to get much information from those kind of stats. I think now it's just, we're just guessing what it's potentially going to be able to do.
Yeah.
So it Googles for answers to problems?
Yeah, you can see in the demo video that it needs to use some kind of API. So what it does is it goes and looks up the API documentation as a reference, and you'll see it in the little browser.
All right, so it's definitely not human. No one looks at docs.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I asked ChatGPT that looks at docs.
Right.
Yeah.
Can Devin use ChatGPT?
That's interesting. I don't know. I imagine it would be able to if it could just go online and open up ChatGPT, but can it buy a subscription to software? I'm not sure.
So one of the questions that we got asked in our coding community, because by the way, we run a coding community with 13,000 other software developers. We run challenges in there. We just talk with each other. We have live video calls. It's a really cool community. You got to check it out.
Link in the description.
A question that we got asked in our programming community was around if you should be worried if Devin's going to replace your job. So what do you guys think about new software engineers learning how to code and having this looming threat of AI replacing their potential job in the future?
I think that people are too concerned about this kind of stuff. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen anyway. So what are you going to do about it? You can't do anything. And it will, if it's going to replace programmers, it's going to replace every other job, a bunch of other jobs.
First.
So the way the world will work and the economy will function and everything will function would completely change if it comes to that, if every job's automated. So I just think people are a little bit too concerned about that.
Yeah, I kind of feel too if I was a beginner programmer and I didn't know how to do anything, there's a lot more people like that. There's a lot more people who don't know how to code than people know how to code. And so when they look at something like this, oh my gosh, it's coding. Oh my gosh, it's running things in the terminal. It's looking up documentation. It's calling an API. That's to us, that's whatever. That's what you do day to day. That's what the people who are software engineers, who are the minority, already do. And so if I was looking into getting into this field, it would seem really concerning because it's oh my gosh, it knows how to do these things that I don't. But then there's a smaller subsect of people who are way quieter, I think, who are okay, that's not that complicated. It ran a lint command. It interacted or got data from a public API. Yeah. It's that doesn't seem crazy. But big groups of people are concerned.
I think what you're getting at is the fact that as you get better as a software engineer, coding is no longer the hard part. it's actually software engineering, which is so much more than just coding, right? Interacting with the team, telling your manager that feature's horrible and you shouldn't implement that, right. Making long-term architectural decisions, deciding what features you're going to add, interacting with the product manager. Like, I know we do so many other things, most of which isn't even coding. And at least at this point for me, like, the hard part is coming up with the solution, architecting it, and working with other people. The easy part is translating it into code, which is, as a beginner, what you first need to learn, right, before you become a software engineer.
Yeah, so I also feel like the problem with AI right now, and when you think about humans, when we design features, like you're saying, we design stuff, we figure out what we want to build, we build it, you constantly iterate on it. And I think the specifications for what you've built are so intricate a lot of times, and they change and they're fast moving, that I think unless you can really capture that and tell that to an API, tell that to an AI, and then it can solve that problem, I don't think we really have to be that worried. What I'm trying to say is the target constantly moves. You build something, you iterate, and then it changes, and it's super intricate, the details you have to go into when you build stuff. And I don't think AI is, at least in my opinion, anywhere close to that level of specificity. Like, we don't even know what to build for people. Exactly. We're trying to figure it out. How are we possibly going to tell a machine, go solve this problem? It's like, we don't even know what we do. That's why companies spend millions and millions of dollars A/B testing, changing copy, changing colors of stuff, because we don't know what works best. And so the fact that you think you could write a one-sentence prompt to Devin or any other AI and then expect it to spit out the perfect, catch-all silver bullet that will generate millions of dollars or something seems kind of far-fetched to me, at least right now.
Yeah, it can solve very beginner level problems right now, but to Nick's point, it is like progressing very fast. From 5% of GitHub issues to 14%, like where will it be at in the next 2 years? I'd like to take a quick break to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Udemy. Now, Udemy was such a key resource for me when I was first learning how to code. Matter of fact, one of the first courses that I took on Udemy was a course around web development that taught me how to build practical full-stack web applications. Now, the course that I initially took on web development is a bit outdated. However, a phenomenal modern web development course that I constantly hear many great things about is a course called the Web Developer Bootcamp by Colt Steele. Now, this course is really everything you need to become an effective full-stack developer in the modern day. You'll learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Node, and MongoDB. But if we're keeping the focus on AI, a great course to take on Udemy is a course titled Artificial Intelligence A to Z. This course will take you through the ins and outs of learning artificial intelligence, large language models, Q-learning, and much more. And I think this course is great because you will get that hands-on experience by building 7 different AI applications as you learn. Now, Udemy is always running sales, so keep an eye out for that. And if you are interested in either of these courses, the link for them will be in the description below.
The thing that I always think about is that what it's good at and what scares people is code generation, right? Yeah. Because it's actually writing a bunch of code. And when you're a beginner and you're just starting out, like, the really tough part for you is like, how do I code? What is this language? What is the syntax? Right. But like we've been saying, like, there's so much more just beyond code generation. Even if it did perfect code generation and can write anything you ask it to do, you still need to have the skills to know what to ask it to do, right? I go to any person who's not a software engineer or not in the tech field and ask them, okay, use ChatGPT and build out and give them like a medium level problem. Let's see how long it takes them to actually use that versus someone who already knows the basics of programming and is familiar with these types of tools and these problems already, right? We can use AI because we already know what we want it to do, and it can just automate all of the boring stuff that usually takes us a lot of time. But can someone with no experience in software engineering that hasn't solved those problems before use those tools? I don't know the answer to that, really.
Why do you guys think programmers specifically are so fixated on this? Like AI replacing programmers? Nobody else is fixated on AI replacing my job.
Well, I think it's because there's a lot of fear-mongering around it. It just gets clicks. Like, when you make videos about it, people are going to watch it.
That's mainly what I think, too, is just everyone constantly pushing that narrative.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I haven't heard about anyone being replaced by AI, any software engineer. Like, I haven't heard of anyone in this field. And until I hear about that, even if it's like very junior level developers, then I'm not gonna get concerned about it until I hear something like that.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Nick, I think the reason programmers are more fixated than other careers is because we're so close to it already, right? Like we're the ones building the AI that are replacing our own jobs. So I think naturally just being in that tech field, like all of us are interested in new technology, new coding tools, whatever. Yeah. So we're gonna be on it right away. And then like you see all this fear mongering, all the negative, like that's gonna pile up over all the positive. And everyone saying, hey, look how much better I was able to be using this AI. Look how much faster I could be. Look how much more of a competent developer I am now because I have access to those tools, right? I don't know about you guys, but I use AI all the time, and it's like completely changed my workflow.
It's kind of ironic because I feel like we've adapted it and we've used it and leveraged it, and we aren't afraid of it. It's like we all have subscriptions to like these different LLMs and use them constantly, and they make us more effective.
And everyone's just constantly talking crap about it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like,
I'm using it every day, but I hate this.
Oh, it's so bad, but like give me how to do this thing, you know, or like write this whatever for me. And so I just think it's really weird. I also feel like as engineers, you're just taught how to solve problems.
Yeah.
Sure. And so it's weird to me that the exact field that I feel has a very flexible framework to learn how to problem solve and break stuff down is afraid of like a new innovation. Stuff changes every year. Like if we can get through the Industrial Revolution and everything ends up being fine, and I would argue better than it used to be before the Industrial Revolution, I feel like AI would be the same thing. It might be a rocky path at first. Maybe there's need to be some regulations or something, but I feel like it'll be fine. And I hope that it'll help people for the better, not the worse.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change the world. Like, I think.
I think it already has in a lot of ways. I think it changed even how we work day to day, or how people get information and things of that nature. AI is already in so many different products. It's just in a less forward-facing way. Now you're interacting with it directly. It's like when you open Instagram, you don't think they're using machine learning to show you the things that they think that they should show you. Like, no, it's already there. This is just front and center. And so it's a little different.
So I guess like for the people listening, right, that are complete beginner programmers, like let's say you're first year in your like computer science degree and you're seeing this like Devin tool. And let's just be blunt, like it is probably better than you are right now, right? Like it can do more stuff than you can do. Like it will be able to create projects faster than you can. Like what do we say to those kind of people? Because I know it's hard to go back and remember when we were like just starting out, because for a lot of us, we've been coding now for like almost 10 years.
Yeah.
But like what would you say to those people? Like should they drop out of the computer science degree or should they keep going?
No, I would say absolutely not. I would say if you're interested in coding and you're passionate about it and you enjoy building stuff with code, then you shouldn't drop out of computer science or not pursue coding.
I think it's just going to change how you like learn to code in the first place, which I think has changed over time, even since I was in college learning to code. Yeah. If I had to go back and learn to code, I would learn completely differently. For sure. So you just have to, there's just going to be modern tools, technologies, resources for you to get up to speed with how people are currently working in the industry, I guess.
I would say that you should lean into it. I think a lot about being in the industry is things change. People used to use C 50 years ago. People still use C today, but now there's like higher level languages and things that are more popular or easier to use. And people do that. And I don't think it's that different. So today I would feel like if you're learning to code, I would lean on AI and use it. And it can help you learn things faster, I would say.
So I would say, right, to these people that are in computer science degree, like the first thing to understand is that a computer science degree is quite a bit different than what you're actually going to do as a software engineer. And that's probably one of the main reasons why, like, you'll be looking at a tool like Devin and go, holy shit, like, look what this thing can do versus me. The type of things I learned in a computer science program, like, did not really directly translate over to a job.
100%.
And most of the other people that were in my program, like, by the time they were graduating or, like, trying to go for internships, they're realizing, like, oh crap, like there's so much other stuff I need to learn by myself. And I think that's probably the first thing to realize. Like if you want to be a software engineer, you have to accept the fact that you're going to be learning so many new things constantly. And first of all, you're gonna have to go outside of your curriculum and like actually write code. The first step to getting better is not to be getting mad that Devin is like about to replace you. It's like, okay, I got to get better than Devin as quickly as possible. And that means like doing coding on your own. Right.
Yeah. A lot of same thing with me, like a lot of computer science stuff. I mean, dude, I took so many classes. I tried to do like calculus problems the other day. I don't remember anything. Like stuff like so much stuff you learn is just kind of useless. But I think like, people that are worried about that, even if you're a beginner, like people pushing this narrative, like, oh yeah, we're going to replace everybody. It probably scares off a lot of people from learning to code, which is bad. And there's really, what is your alternative? Okay. What are you going to do? What are you going to learn other than coding? If you're interested in coding, what are you going to do then? Okay, you're going to go into business. Okay, you might get automated there. You're going to go into like you can get automated in literally anything you go into. So there's no point in worrying about your job getting automated, especially when you're not even close to getting a job, and the job market might be completely different. And everything might be completely different by the time you learn how to code.
I feel like there was this big influx of people who wanted to learn how to code just because they thought it would be a fast way to make six figures. And now like AI is on the scene. So they're like, oh, I don't want to do that now. AI is going to replace my job. So I feel like that's kind of deterring a lot of people who only wanted to learn how to code just for the money aspect. But yeah, if you're genuinely passionate about coding and you like writing code, that's a really good point. What else are you going to do? Personally, I don't know what else I would do if it wasn't coding.
And if you do nothing, you're just doing nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, just learn the code. If you're interested in it, learn it.
Yeah,
and there's no point. You're like, what else are you going to do?
So here's a scenario. Like, let's say somebody does learn how to code. They go through a 4-year computer science degree or a boot camp or whatever. They get a job, and in 2 years, they're completely replaced. Do you guys think that was a waste of time?
I wouldn't say it's a complete waste of time, because the type of skills you develop by learning how to code translate into everyday life. I mean, we just filmed some other videos where we talked about this, and I think all of us really have a certain way of thinking, a certain way of structuring problems, even our own lives to some extent, because of the type of skills that we've learned and that what we need to do, right? It's a very logical, think through it, critical thinking type field. Like, you can't get through it unless you think that way. So I would say that's very important. That's going to carry you in a lot of aspects of life. But I would also say, like, you just have to adapt, right? Like, let's say you were to get replaced and all of a sudden it's doing the code generation that you would normally do. Like, let's think of like a QA person, right? Who's doing like some testing scripts. Okay, that's probably gonna be one of the first things to go. Like, AI can do quite a bit of testing quite fast. I use it to write like automated unit tests all the time.
Yeah.
So what do you gotta do? You have to learn, okay, how can I use AI to be like way better than it? How can I optimize with it, right? It's just another challenge. Like, coding every few years changes. I remember when I was just writing plain HTML websites. Now all of a sudden that's like super easy, no one does that. I gotta learn React, or I gotta learn Vue, or I gotta learn whatever, all these other frameworks. It's the same thing in this coding field now, just with this AI as like kind of a bigger obstacle, right?
Yeah.
Anything can be automated essentially that people can do if AI becomes as smart as people, right?
Yeah.
So how soon before that do you think that programmers would get automated compared to everything else?
It's funny because I feel like, you know, not to say that we're like up on our high horse or something, but I do feel like programming is a thing that there's a higher entry to get into.
For sure.
You need to know a lot of stuff. You have to go to a boot camp or learn a lot of information. It's not something you could just show up to and do. So in my opinion, I feel like there will be like swarms of jobs that are automated before. And then at that point, the writing will be on the wall. It'll be like,
Exactly.
I agree.
you know, it'll be like, oh, now I should be concerned when like 30% of other people have lost their jobs in X, right? And I think at that point, that's when I would be concerned. And so I feel like luckily we might have that little bit of buffer where we will see those things happening in front of our eyes truly to like a large magnitude. And then at that point, I would probably start thinking, where is my life raft? Where should I go from here?
Yeah.
But not now.
Yeah, and you'll kind of see it happening. Like, if you're paying attention to the trends and you're paying attention to how AI is impacting your job, either you'll adapt or you'll kind of succumb to it. And any good engineer is going to learn how to adapt and learn how to use it in their everyday life.
And of course, all of these startup AI companies that do these demos that people get scared of and it goes viral all over the internet, they're doing that because they do want to shock people. They want to market. They want to raise more funding, like impress investors and all that stuff. So it's just like, that's just the sentiment that's going around when it's really not like the reality fully.
Have you guys seen Devin's website? Or the company that made Devin, the website?
Yeah.
Here.
I've seen the thumbnail of the video. I haven't actually watched it.
I hope Devin didn't make that.
You think Devin made that?
Yeah, it's pretty basic. I think I could teach
If
someone
that's
to make that.
all Devin can make, I'm not concerned. I'm gonna say that right now.
I don't know, man. That's pretty concerning to me.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, but I don't know.
You think that's cool?
I mean,
That's better than I could do when I didn't know how to code. I mean, that's as much as I could tell you. I'm also too much of an optimist, maybe, but I hope, maybe this is wrong, or I mean, who knows what'll happen, but I like to think that if AI is going to change the world and replace a bunch of people, I like to think optimistically that will just let people do more of what they want. Some people don't like writing code. Some people don't want to work for 40 hours a week or whatever. Maybe they want to be artists. Maybe they want to learn underwater jazz. I don't know. Like, whatever they want to do, I just hope that it lets people do more of what they want.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not real, but I like to think that.
To bring it back a bit to what you said, like, we hear all this fear mongering, AI is going to replace your job. Like you said, like, I don't actually know a single job in like the technical programming software engineering field that is like actually been fully replaced by AI. I don't know anything where it's someone literally came and said, hey, because AI is around, I lost my job in programming. In other fields, I do know that, but not in like software engineering.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I feel like in the timeline of jobs being replaced, programming jobs is way down the road. But have you guys heard of any jobs being replaced by AI, like programming or not?
Like cashiers, for example, but I think it's really just a reallocation of resources. Like I used to work at McDonald's, and when I worked there, that was when they were like bringing in all the electronic tills. And at that point, what really happened is no one lost their job. They just said, hey, rather than taking orders now, you're just going to go prepare food, or you're going to be more efficient in the kitchen and doing this. Now, obviously, that means like maybe they need like 1 or 2 less staff because they don't have someone sitting like at the cashier. But it's not a full wipe of the workforce. It's really a reallocation of resources into where you need that human touch, right? Which I think is also what's going to happen quite a bit with software engineering. Like now, we don't need 5 interns that are doing like boilerplate testing code that's like super easy, right? We can reallocate them to do something that actually requires human interaction, which maybe programmers don't want to hear, but that's really what I think. It's just kind of shifting what you need to do, right?
Yeah. I want to ask you guys a question. You might have very like subjective answers, which is okay. But what are some skills that programmers could learn to possibly like future-proof their job with AI, if there are any?
Communication, social,
Yeah,
interaction.
soft skills. Absolutely soft skills.
How to build and use AI.
Okay,
I
that's
mean,
a good one. Yeah,
That's more future-proof than other things, right?
I think that's a great answer.
I think being able to like pitch your value and speak with confidence is super important. Like I know some developers that are really, really good, but if you were just talking to them, like you wouldn't know that because they can't convey it to you well. Right? Yeah, they can build something cool, but they just don't like show themselves off well, which I think especially in this era, like you want to stand out as a developer, someone who is more well-rounded, can utilize these tools, but has other things to bring to the table. So learning like just how to speak properly, how to present yourself, how to go into an interview. It would really surprise a lot of people, but I had to interview a bunch of software engineers recently, and I was shocked just bluntly at how poor most of them were at communicating and how bad their resumes were, how bad the emails were they sent. Like, and I'm like, no wonder you guys are not getting jobs if this is your best foot forward, right?
And the easiest things to automate are things that are repetitive and are done over and over and are easy to do. Like those are the things that are going to be. So anything that's like where you have to critically think a lot and actually figure things out on your own, going into a niche like that is probably the best case for like future-proof wise.
Yeah.
I kind of think too that the best thing engineering as a whole has taught me is just how to, you get stuck and then you figure out a way around that obstacle or over it or through it. And I think before I started learning how to code, I had such a lower stamina in terms of like how frustrated I would get when I get stuck 100%. On anything in life or had to figure out a way to solve some problem. And now I don't get nearly as annoyed or frustrated. I've like learned how to learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so you could take that and you're willing to like hit your head against the wall way more, at least in my opinion, as an engineer, because like that's your job. You figure out how to do things you don't know how to do, and you eventually figure out a solution and arrive at it. So I think if you could take that kind of framework and just apply it to anything else, I bet you could learn virtually anything. So if you're not doing engineering anymore, you could apply it to anything else.
Yeah, I think now it's becoming important to have like a good amount of domain knowledge in like different fields, right? To be able to use AI effectively, I feel like you kind of need to know like a bit about a lot of different areas, and then you can actually see if it's giving you the correct responses or replies, right? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll go there and ask it to like kind of rate the solution that I'm going to be using for something and give me maybe different alternatives. But the thing is, it can hallucinate and give me things that are complete garbage, right? Even the code that it generates sometimes doesn't even work, or it's not at all what I asked it for. So being able to actually utilize those tools and like audit them to some extent, right? Because if you think about it, we're going to start using AI, they're going to hire a software engineer who already knows like what the correct solution is to utilize AI to just get it done faster. We still need the oversight, right?
Yeah, like this thing is like the AIs aren't like critically thinking. Like if I'm asking it like, oh, build me this mini Python project, build me this mini web project, yeah, it's going to spit me out a bunch of template code and it's going to be pretty useful. But if I'm like, all right, help me with this self-driving car project, help me with the build an app on the Apple Vision Pro, it's going to be like, oh, there's not enough information out there on Google. I don't know how to critically think. I can't figure out all these problems.
That's a good point, actually.
That's an interesting point, and it will be interesting to see how LLMs integrate with companies' code bases, you know, and give you solutions based off the current code base.
Yeah.
I think just the main issue too is like right now we obviously can't trust like 100% what the output is, and a lot of times you can ask an AI like, hey, do you know how to do this? And it'll just say yes, even though it doesn't actually know the correct result, right? Like it has those AI hallucinations.
Yeah.
So if you were just have like your AI software engineer like working in the background with no supervision, or you had a full company of AI software engineers, like what's actually going to happen? Like I'd be very curious to see a project where it's like an AI manager and like 5 AI software engineers, and see like what actually gets built, what the iteration cycles look like, if they end up implementing like agile, Scrum, whatever.
Right.
Like
That'd be interesting
like
to
I wonder
figure it out,
what
yeah.
are they gonna do? Because like it's different agents working together. Like they don't have that human touch, and also there's nothing like what about the ethic component of it as well, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing too. You even see that nowadays, right? Like there's some things that motivate models, right? Like if you're on any kind of app or something, a lot of times it's about retention, getting you to watch longer, see more ads, that kind of a thing. And so even nowadays there's stuff like that. Like if you call an airline, you know, maybe I wait 10 minutes and you wait 2 minutes. And it's like, there's a reason for that I don't know, that they do know. And so I think it's a similar thing with AI where like what is being optimized for and why and who's, you know, pulling those levers to make those things happen. And it is very much like a black box. Like you don't know what happens, but you just get some kind of answer. And very few people control that black box.
Did you see that recent example? I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it was like some AI, I think it was like Gemini or something, that started generating like a bunch of like black characters for like, you know, very traditionally, or like what just objectively is like a white, you know, instance, character, entity, whatever it's supposed to be. Yeah, and I think they pulled it immediately because there's some like introduced bias into the model.
Yeah.
So I think it's just interesting when we trust, especially like a closed source model, even something like, I don't know what Devin probably is going to be. I don't imagine this is open source. Like, could they implement it so any of their competitors, it generates like horrible code that doesn't work? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting problem to see what's going to happen in the future.
That's why I almost feel like in some ways there's like, you have to have some kind of regulation or some way for there to be oversight that isn't like the company who's trying to make money with the thing.
For sure.
Because otherwise it is really scary. And then people start running with that and using it. It's almost like, I think there was an example that I think Elon Musk gave about talking about how there were cars and then you didn't have seatbelts for cars for like years and years and years. And there was so many problems and deaths and injuries because there were no seatbelts for so long. It wasn't regulated. And in some ways, AI is the same thing. Like there's this thing moving unimaginably fast. Like you just said, ChatGPT came out like a year ago and it's already advancing so much. And if there aren't regulations, if there aren't people at least thinking about these things very critically, it's a little scary for like what could happen.
All right, final thoughts on Devin, on AI?
I would say, you know, just keep going, utilize it as a tool, but remember that if you want to get to a point where you're going to be better than it, it is going to take time. It is going to take years of experience. It's not something where you're just going to pick it up and be amazing right away.
Yeah.
I think that where there's smoke, there's fire, and I don't really smell smoke yet. I'm not worried.
You can't predict the future, so there's no point in worrying.
But yeah, I would say if you're genuinely interested in learning how to code and you're passionate about it, you definitely shouldn't let AI stop you.
For sure.
All right,
Join school.
check out our school community. And fuck Devin.
I hope you leave that in.